What is going on, my fellow creeps? We've got huge Resident Evil 9 news, and it's got fans both hyped and a little bit nervous. Pre-orders are going live this month, leaks are swirling about Leon Kennedy returning, and Capcom is clearly gearing up for the final stretch. But here's the thing, some of the new info coming out has me a little concerned. Let's get into it. Capcom officially announced that pre-orders for Resident Evil Requiem kick off on October 29th, which is actually huge news. That means the game is still on track for its February 2026 release. No delays, no setbacks, just full steam ahead. Now here's where it gets a bit interesting. Leaker Dust Column, who's been pretty accurate about Resident Evil but also has been wrong, so take this with a grain of salt, doubled down that Leon Kennedy is absolutely in this game, and not just as a side character. Apparently Leon is the main playable lead for most of the game, with Grace serving as a secondary perspective, more of a narrative balance than a true co-lead. And that raises a really interesting question. If these leaks are true, we could be spending up to 70% of the campaign as Leon, the rest as Grace, and that's not necessarily bad news. I mean, we love Leon. He is the face of the franchise, but it does kind of make you wonder, is Capcom afraid to take a risk here? Because this is supposed to be the 30th anniversary game. This is supposed to feel like a new era, yet they might be relying on nostalgia to carry it instead of giving Grace her own spotlight. If you think about it, that hesitation says a lot. Capcom's seen massive success with Resident Evil 2 Remake Village and RE4 Remake. All games built on familiar DNA, but when it comes time to try something truly new, a new face, a new tone, a new formula, they pull back. And honestly, I get it. This game needs to be a banger. It's the 30-year milestone. It cannot afford to fumble the tone, the pacing, or the fan expectations. But playing it too safe could be just as dangerous. And that ties into a bigger issue, the confusion about tone. Capcom said early on that Requiem would be a return to slower, horror-focused roots, kind of like Resident Evil 7. But now insiders are saying the final product might actually be equal parts action and horror. And I get it, Resident Evil has always walked that line, but when the developers themselves reportedly admit they're not even sure if the game is scary, that's not something I want to hear. Look, I understand being desensitized. If you've been making horror games for decades, jump scares probably stop working on you. But that doesn't mean you lose your horror identity. Resident Evil was built on fear, on tension, atmosphere, and dread. If Requiem starts leaning too hard into the action side again, we're gonna be right back in that Resident Evil 6 territory. I think most of us would agree nobody wants that, even if it means getting more Leon. Now, I will say Capcom's playing this one close to the chest. We've barely seen any actual gameplay. Not a single second of gunfire, not a walk through Raccoon City, nothing beyond the early cutscenes and a few creepy set pieces. That kind of secrecy could go two ways. It could mean they're hiding something incredible, or they're holding back because the tone is still shifting internally. Either way, with the Game Awards coming up in December, that's where I expect we'll finally see real gameplay. Hopefully something that reminds us why Resident Evil has been the king of horror for nearly 30 years, and please, for the love of God, let us see Raccoon City. Here's my thing. I want to be scared again. Village had its moments, 7 was downright terrifying, and the remakes of RE2 and 3 proved that Capcom knows how to modernize horror without losing its soul. So the idea that Requiem might not even be scary, that worries me. Because it's not just about cheap scares, it's about keeping the survival horror DNA alive. But that's just my take. What do you think? Are you excited for Resident Evil Requiem, or are you starting to worry that Capcom is playing it too safe and losing touch with what made the series great in the first place? Drop your thoughts down below. I want to know if your team keep it scary or team bring back the action. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, please subscribe and click that like button. Stay creepy, my friends. That's all I got for now.